Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster, and today I have a special exclusive look at Silmarillion Total War. This is going to be the first 1v1 posted anywhere of the Sons of Feanor and the Realm of Angband. This is a 1v1 on the Beach Assault map, although I think we've renamed it to something a little bit more first stage appropriate for the purposes of our alpha. But as you may have guessed already, alpha has begun. We do have some factions onto the build, and we've been kind of playing around with them a little bit, trying to get things into a state that's playable for everybody. So let's take a look at the army here of the Sons of Feanor, being commanded by Secretariat. Now, one thing to note about the Sons of Feanor is that they invest... Ooh, don't pay attention to that guy, I'll have to fix that later. Is that they invest very heavily into their cavalry. Their cavalry is, by and large, the best cavalry in the game. They are the only faction that has a traditional Lancer Knight unit, and they have a ton of versatile cavalry that can really just fulfill any role. So the unit you see before you is the Mounted Company of Kurufin. These are a melee cavalry and jav cavalry hybrid. Their javelins are very deadly, very precise, and in close quarters, these guys are absolutely tops. The way the melee cavalry works in Silmarillion Total War is that they've got similar bonuses to what they have in Reforged, though it's not quite so profound. I've tried to tone down things a little bit in terms of like the more extreme end. Oops, sorry about that. The more extreme end of bonuses and things like that from I think what many people are used to in Reforged. But that being said, these guys have great bonuses against cavalry, pretty good bonuses against warg units, and a decent bonus against elephants as well, making them very adept monster hunters, assuming that they can isolate them, which Angband is not always going to let you do. Over here we have some Stalkers of Thargelion. These are light militia infantry for the House of Feanor. In Silmarillion Total War, what we decided to do was subsume the Edain factions into houses that they conceivably could have served. Houses of the Eldar, that is. So the Sons of Haleth fight for the Sons of Feanor, whereas the House of Fingolfin is going to use the House of Beor, and you'll see more about them at a later date. But the Stalkers of Thargelion are quite nice. They have a non-AP javelin projectile, which makes them particularly useful for cutting down light or medium infantry, especially those that don't have a high shield value. But the reason you'd want to bring them in the Angband matchup is that currently they are armor-piercing. So this is a lot of numbers here, which the Sons of Feanor do tend to lack on their infantry line. And it's a cheap source of AP and a little bit of projectile harassment. So a militia unit, but nonetheless an invaluable part of the Sons of Feanor army. And that's what I want out of Silmarillion Total War. I want every unit to have its place. Here we have the Defenders of Aglon, the only shock unit available to the Sons of Feanor. Well, shock as in two-handed unit. Some of the Stalkers of Thargelion can act as a shock unit in their own right. But the Defenders of Aglon, very, very tanky, a lot of staying power, and a lot of damage as well. Their big drawback is their low numbers, having only 100 men in the unit. And in general, Silmarillion Total War elf units are more numerous than their first age counterparts, because of course they are. This is the time of the elves, so 103 men in the unit is a significant drop from the standard elven unit size. And the same applies to their other infantry units as well. So the Footmen of Amoras, smaller than they otherwise would be, 120 men in the unit. This is their armor upgrade version. The Sons of Feanor are one of the few factions that can upgrade their armor. Angband being the other, the Dwarves being the third. Armor upgrades are quite few and far between in Silmarillion Total War, but that just makes them more meaningful for the factions that do have them, and the Sons of Feanor are one of those. This brings them up to a whopping 12 armor, which is very, very high. Armor values in Silmarillion Total War are going to be lower than they are in 3rd Age Reforged. So this is a big leg up for the survivability of the Sons of Feanor infantry. Over here, we have another Edain unit, an excellent holding unit, the Shield Bearers of Helivorn. These guys are able to upgrade their armor, although you don't see an armor or a model change for them just yet because I haven't made it. But they are very adept spear units. One thing to note about spear units in Silmarillion Total War is that their damage is significantly lower. However, their damage against cavalry and their melee defense has been greatly increased. So even low-tier spear units have decent melee defense values, so you're not just going to necessarily be able to run them down with a Lancer charge from the front. And as well, these guys are heavily armored. It gives them a ton of staying power, although their numbers are a little bit lower than other human units, but that is to be expected. Here we have the shield, another company of the Shield Bearers of Heliborn. But over here, some Defenders of Angband, more Footmen of Amras, and then another. I think there's another 2 companies of the Stalkers of Thargelion hanging around somewhere. But now we get into the really cool stuff. So here we have the Mounted Company of Caligorm, red armored, deadly heavy lancers. The Sons of Feanor heavy cavalry do get some significant bonuses as well, and particularly to their lancers. Their lancers get an extra 2 charge damage for free, so it doesn't cost them anything. They're a little bit faster than other heavy lancers, or rather than other lancer units, so they're going to be about the same speed as a medium lancer unit, say. Heavily armored, heavily shielded, and they're the only heavy lancer unit I think that's available to any faction. So the Sons of Feanor have uniquely heavy cavalry units like this that they can use to establish supremacy on open plains. Another company here of the Mounted Company of Kurufin, and then there's the third company of the Stalkers of Thargelion. Then we have the Knight unit here for the House of Feanor. These are the Roqueni Magloro, or the Knights of Maglor in English if you prefer. They are smaller than the Reforged Knight counterparts, which tend to weigh in, I think, about 32 when all is said and done. But they are extremely tanky, very, very deadly. Their charge is absolutely devastating. I think in total they have like 30 charge. They've got like 20 additional bonus, 10 initial damage. It's devastating. Very, very strong, especially against non-spear infantry units. They can just run hundreds of men down on their own. And that's going to do for the Sons of Feanor. Let's pop across the field and see what Angband has brought to the battle today. Now, as befits the forces of the first Dark Lord, the biggest threat to Middle-earth that ever was or will be, the army of Angband is replete with monsters and other terrifying apparitions drawn from the pits of Morgoth. So let's take a look at their army composition here. We have the Valaraukar. At the moment, they function a little bit like trolls. There's 10 of them, which is the smallest infantry unit size that you can have. We were having some troubles with the model causing, or at least the skeleton and the animations causing crashing. So they may remain in this kind of state. There are at least a couple different conceptions of Tolkien's Balrogs that we can draw from, or I will find an alternative model and make them into elephants again, in which case you'll only have 3 of them. So the Valaraukar are still a work in progress, but they are present in the Angband faction. And of course, they've also got some wolf riders here as well. You can't really see them all that well. It's a little bit dark. But they use the Sauron's Will model, except they've got a sword and shield. And those nasty-looking wargs here. There is another warg-focused faction, and they'll have different-looking wargs from what you see here. Here we have the Ironshod Reavers. Oh yeah, and as well, DT King of Isengard Artorias, one of my clanmates, is going to be playing as Angband today. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. I was very excited about the Balrogs, and I have a lot to say about them. But yeah, so we've got some Ironshod Reavers here, looking like they're a flanking force. This is an Axe infantry unit. In Silmarillion Total War, Axe units have an increased charge and base damage at the cost of melee defense. A significant cost to their melee defense. So these guys only have about 2 melee defense, but they do have a fair amount of damage and good armor, as well as the Angband forces do rely heavily on their armor at the cost of melee defense and other things. In the center, 2 companies here of the Ironshod Arbalists, crossbowmen for the realm of Angband. Also got some Troll Guard of Gothmog here, which are mentioned as being present at the Battle of Nirnaeth Arnothiad. And then the center line is composed of both Halberds and Guardians of the Iron Crown. This is a strictly AP front line. The Halberds themselves are a mid-tier unit, whereas the Guardians of the Iron Crown are high-tier infantry. They're going to be backed up with a second company of Ironshod Arbalists and some Troll Guard of Gothmog. Another company of Ironshod Reavers over here, more wargs, and then we have the Uruloki, the Dragons of Angband. For this, I've used the Hydra model with some modifications to the textures from Botet, which is the beginning of the end times for those unfamiliar with that particularly large mod in the Medieval 2 modding scene. And they're going to function. They don't currently have all of their stuff right now, but they are going to function as kind of terrifying shock troops. They will be able to spit fire at some point, but for now they're an elephant unit, so they've got an AoE damage component to them, high armor. Of course, they're quite expensive and very low in number. So melee cavalry, if they manage to sight these guys, can cut them down if they're isolated. But Angband is all about using their monsters in tandem with their heavily armored infantry lineup, making them very formidable indeed. And that's going to do. It's a fairly uneven balance bar there. You can see that the Sons of Feanor are certainly at a disadvantage. Well, let's go ahead and get this started. I hope you guys enjoyed this first exclusive look at Silmarillion Total War in this Angband versus the Sons of Feanor matchup. So the archers, I think I missed a couple of archer units here for the Sons of Feanor. They do actually have 2 units of the Archers of Amrod, which is like a higher tier, or like a mid-tier infantry archer for the Sons of Feanor. Secretariat's going to move forward with 3 companies of the Shield Bearers of Helivorn, and he's going to move up onto this hill to try and check the Angband advance. But look at that. Terrifying, that moonlit march of the forces of Angband as they move to take that hill from the Edain, who have taken up a strong position there. This is a bit of a risky move for Secretariat. There's certainly enough units here to smash their way through this defensive line very, very quickly. You can see the Secretariat is moving with his mounted companies, 2 companies of the mounted company of Kurufin, onto the opposite wing on his left. And he's going to use them to menace the Wolf Riders of Angband, as well as the Valaraukar. That'll be a tough fight for them, but those units are very, very strong indeed. Wolf Riders of Angband have managed to make it almost entirely behind the Sons of Feanor's position, and I don't see any cavalrymen nearby that could be used to repulse them. It looks like instead Secretariat has concentrated all of his cavalry on his left wing, which has left him vulnerable on the right. Defenders of Aglon, however, being mobilized to fight against the Ironshod Reavers. That is going to be no contest for these elite elven warriors. They are going to slash and hack their way through the Ironshod Reavers like it's nobody's business. Although, of course, with the Uruloki in tow, that could be a different story. Footmen of Amrad being brought forward. A charge like this from Wolf Riders of Angband, who are not a shock cavalry, that is something to note here, is the differences between units and their unit types and their weapon types as well have been greatly accentuated. So you can see this frontal charge here by the Wolf Riders of Angband did essentially nothing to the Footmen of Amras. They're going to be able to stand their ground in the face of that, no problem. And the Sons of Feanor are going to pepper down those Wolf Riders as they retreat. The Uruloki going to charge in, but unsupported, it's not going to be an easy fight. They are going to toss these guys around and make a right mess of things, but it's not a sure thing for them to win. They do need infantry support. Up here on the front lines, oh man, it's going very poorly for the Shield Bearers of Helivorn. There's a lot of nasty stuff here, and the lines have begun to break, and morale has begun to waver. The Footmen of Amras, however, are very, very sturdy. High morale, high armor, pretty decent attack. Their melee defense is not especially amazing, as that's one of the drawbacks of playing as the House of Feanor. But over here on the wing, we got the Defenders of Aglon backed up with some Footmen of Amras, and they are slaughtering the Ironfoot Reavers. So far, Sons of Feanor have managed to hold on to their wings quite adroitly. Footmen of Amras here, dealing with these Wolves of Angband. And these Archers of Amrod are being assaulted by the Uruloki. Have managed to break through the position. But again, the Noldor are no slouch, and this is the time of Middle-earth where they are at their strongest. So the Uruloki, especially against loose formation troops like this, are not going to be super effective. A rear charge here by the Wolf Riders against the infantry of the House of Feanor on their left, however, is going to hurt. It doesn't matter who you are and what time you live in. Shield Bearers on the verge of cracking. Over here, it's really, really looking difficult for the Sons of Feanor. Largely, this is down to the Troll Guard of Gothmog, who are just so disruptive. But the Troll Guard, it's important to note, are not invincible. These archer units here can stand their ground against them, and it looks like Secretariat is now mobilizing his light infantry reserves. 3 companies of Stalkers of Thargelion charging their way out of the woods, and against the low melee defense, high armor values of the Troll Guard of Gothmog, they will be able to get some serious efficiency. Over here, the Footmen of Amras and the Defenders of Anglond have joined battle against the mighty Valaraukar. Deadly, deadly units. But they're holding their ground well. The Troll Guard of Gothmog moving in to try and defend their Balrog overlords. But the Elven Infantry are holding their ground well, and this is what I mean. Monsters alone are not enough to break down even the Sons of Feanor, whose infantry is not the greatest. Over on the front lines, however, that combined arms approach is really bearing fruit. As you can see, Footmen of Amras holding on well. But slowly but surely things are beginning to crumble. Some victorious reserves from the right wing and now the infantry archers in the center are being committed to the fray to hold on to the line and maintain as much integrity as they possibly can. Sons of Feanor really stacked on their right wing here. The Ironshod Reavers still being destroyed, but the Archers of Amras are going to be able to move through the gaps and engage the Ironshot Arbalists as they move to take position up here on the hill. Now, they do not have a good firing arc at all. This position here that Secretariat has taken has really done wonders to shield him from the worst of the Ironshot Arbalists, who could otherwise be very, very deadly. Stalkers of Thargelion have moved into position. However, the Troll Guard of Gothmog are moving in to engage them after having routed a unit of Shield Bearers of Helivorn. But honestly, this is, I think, a deceptively decent position for the Sons of Feanor to be in. These Troll Guard are not on the center. They're not on the wings here, helping to even out the fight. And 1-to-1, the Sons of Feanor infantry is more than a match for any individual unit in the Angmar roster. Even these powerful Guardians of the Iron Crown, with their cruel maces and their armor-piercing damage, are not going to be enough to win the day on their own. You can see the Sons of Feanor have been stabilizing the position here a little bit, although wherever the halberds are, this is where the Sons of Feanor do tend to struggle, as they don't have a direct answer to the halberds in the form of a pike or a halberd unit of their own. However, they do have some strong armor-piercing units here in reserve that they can use to outflank this attempt to encircle the center of the Sons of Feanor by Misericordia's Angband forces. What do we got over here? It looks like victory for the Sons of Feanor infantry. Haven't seen too much from their cavalry, but you can see that the cavalry is in the back here. Mounted Company of Curufin have been more or less victorious. The Troll Guard of Gothmog just aren't able to necessarily destroy these guys. They are quite adept. They're almost like a mobile infantry in close quarters. And they've got higher damage and similar melee stats to the Footmen of Amras. The only difference is that they can't upgrade their armor. But they've actually got more damage with their swords than their Footmen counterparts. So they're mobile infantry. They're tough. And of course they're armed with their armor-piercing javelins as well. Valor Raukar have actually been reduced from 10 to 6. And you can see a second wave of Sons of Feanor infantry moving in to prevent their center from being encircled and crushed by the Angband halberdier line. Some more sturdy infantry here in the form of the Footmen of Amras, who are still very, very healthy. The warriors of Angband charging down the hill to meet the advance of the light infantry of the Sons of Feanor. They're holding on. You got to give it to the Sons of Feanor. This is a great showing for their infantry. Cavalry is picking away at the Angband back line, but these crossbows are going to hurt them. I see many of the Mounted Company of Caligorm being cut down there. But the Roqueni Magloro still in really good shape. 22 of them. They've only lost a couple of men out of that unit. Infantry here is bringing it back on the right-hand side, whereas on the left, it's still in the balance. The Stalkers of Thargelion still in good numbers, and Angband isn't really able to bring their monsters to bear against the back of the Thargelion line, which would certainly rout them, as they are currently engaged trying to deal with a large commitment of Sons of Feanor infantry and cavalry, and the Balrogs are proving insufficient to do so on their lonesome. Loki in the center, running disruption, death and destruction all over this hill. Oh, Mounted Company of Caligorm getting a beautiful charge here. And with the Knights joining the fray, the Loki, their animations make them not particularly powerful against the cavalry units. So the Roqueni Magloro will actually be able to hurt them quite a lot, especially once they slow down like this. And those Iron Shot Arbalists have really taken a lot of damage. Some friendly fire being dumped into them as well by their nearby unit. I suppose Artorias. Did I call him Misericordia? I'm sorry, I'm mixing up my guildmates. Artorias probably sees this as a worthy exchange if he can deal with the Roqueni Magloro with just a little bit of friendly fire. Those Arbalists falling back, but the Sons of Feanor are well and truly in command of their right. And on their left, they are still in numbers, surrounding the Angband warriors. Oh, and it looks like we missed a unit here. Some Bulldogs. For those unfamiliar with the lore, the Bulldogs are essentially Fallen Maiar in the form of an orc. They are very powerful General's Bodyguard units, 2 HP, heavy armor. Nonetheless, Sons of Feanor are holding on. And the Valor-Raukar are all but destroyed at this point. You can see them beginning to fall down to a meager 2. Now the Sons of Feanor are going to be free to disengage their 2 companies of Mounted Company of Kurufin and much of their heavy infantry that are still on this side. 75 footmen of Amaras. If they can get in here and disrupt the Iron Shot Arbalists, which is honestly what they should be doing, I would take the cavalry out of here and I would run them at these Iron Shot Arbalists and just keep them busy, keep them from firing, and then use my infantry to clean up what's left of the Balrogs. Some of the Shield Bearers of Hellevorn fought the good fight for a really long time. Those battalions were hard pressed. But nonetheless, they held on for a very long time. And now the Stalkers of Thargelion are beginning to run out of steam, but they've inflicted some pretty serious damage here with their armor piercing on these heavy infantry from Angband. And while they seem to be winning, I think their position is deceptively weak. Sons of Feanor still have a ton of really powerful infantry on this side. They still have some of their cavalry. And they are winning on the opposite side as well. So really, Angband is only pulling out a win in the center. Trogard of Gothmog down to 1. Sons of Feanor are forming up again, along with the remains of their heavy infantry. A fair amount of footmen of Amaras, as well as defenders of Aglon. And they're going to move in now and support what remains of the light infantry against the strongest concentration of Angband troops still remaining on the battlefield. Looks like these Arbalists here have run out of damage, and that, or rather ammo, but essentially they have run out of damage as they're quite poor in melee. And there's still cavalry here. Still a fair amount of cavalry from the Sons of Feanor. I hear those Uru Loki, but I do not see them. I see. They're haranguing the cavalry from the Sons of Feanor, the Roqueni Magloro being kept away from the engagement by the Uru Loki, which is great use of his monsters. Honestly, that's what you want to at least try to do. But now he's going to have to bring them back here to fight against the infantry. And the infantry are going to have no problem cutting these guys down, especially when there are so few Angband heavy infantry still remaining. Iron Shot Arbalists here fighting against the Mounted Company, but honestly, I would expect the Mounted Company to win this. They do so much damage. Yeah, and you can see them just cutting these guys down. Like I said, they are a mobile infantry force. And the Arbalists really taking it on the chin. Some footmen of Amaras have joined the battle as well. These guys trying to put some pressure on the Sons of Feanor, but they're actually getting a lot of friendly fire here. Yeah, the Sons of Feanor are winning on their right, and again, on the left, they have now joined battle against the Angband forces that remain in the center. And it's looking like anybody's game so far, but there are still a fair amount of cavalry left over. A little bit of a micro lapse here by Secretariat. But now you can see the Mounted Company of Kurufin coming back. And they're probably going to charge directly into the rear of the remaining Angband forces here. Got some Bulldogs supporting the Arbalists. They managed to rout off the footmen of Amaras. There's only 25 of them remaining. Ooh, the Bulldogs here charging into battle against the Mounted Company. They'll do well. I think they could probably beat the Mounted Company that remain here at least. Well, they are taking some damage though. Look at that, the Bulldogs. Even the Bulldogs beginning to fall. Nice charge here by the Roqueni Magloro. That ought to put an end to the Iron Shot Arbalists. The other company can move in to support them, but now the Sons of Feanor have defeated Angband utterly on their right wing. They're going to be able to move in with Archers of Amrod, Defenders of Aglon, and all kinds of nasty stuff that the Iron Shot Arbalists are very woefully under-equipped to deal with. And now, what remains of the Guardians of the Iron Crown and the Halberdiers have been surrounded. The Bulldogs are still in decent shape. The Valaraukar are completely and utterly destroyed, having spent much of their strength, as well as the Troll Guard of Gothmog, on their left wing. And this is pretty well it, I think, for Angband. Once these Iron Shot Arbalists here have been defeated, and then the Sons of Feanor will be free to completely encircle the Bulldogs and pound them into the dust. 88% to 94. Oh, nasty. But you can see they still stand up to it quite well. They may have very few numbers and they may be fairly expensive. Ooh, there goes the Sons of Feanor General. But the Roqueni Magloro are no joke. Not an easy thing to kill. Let's see here. How many Arbalists do we have left? 14 still have ammunition. 10 of them remaining on the front line, but they're not going to be able to last for too much longer. And I think that Artorius realizes this, so he is going to fall back. Try and get one or two more volleys off. Maybe he's going to go after the cavalrymen here. Seems like Secretariat is going to see it, though. He's going to charge in with his cavalry, and I think that's going to be all she wrote for the Arbalists. Yep. And now the victorious Sons of Feanor forces have cleaned up on their right wing, and all that remains are the Bulldogs. All things considered, this is a significant defeat for the forces of Angband, having lost Balrogs, Uruloki, a large amount of Troll Guard, and now a number of Bulldogs as well. And go ahead, zoom in, fast forward on this. And that is going to be a solid showing by the Sons of Feanor. And there goes the Angband General. That's going to be all she wrote. 99 to 94, however. Very, very close game. And just look at the destruction on this hill here. Complete and utter annihilation of both of these armies. Very nicely played by both of the players there. I'm not sure what Angband could have done terribly differently. He played well. I think a large part of this was that he wasn't able to use his Arbalists against the Sons of Feanor infantry. He just couldn't hit them without hitting his own troops. He would have to fire indirectly, which is markedly less accurate and powerful. And the Sons of Feanor cavalry was just able to tie down a lot of his really important resources on the wings. And then when he was finally able to encircle them, a lot of his powerful stuff had been defeated, and then Secretary was able to surround his flanking movement with armor-piercing light infantry and stop it from being as effective as it could have possibly been. And that spared his troops on the left and the right to finish off the unsupported orcs and then converge on the center and then destroy those Bulldogs at the last. Really good game. Very, very fun to watch. I hope you guys have enjoyed this first look at Silmarillion Total War. At the moment, Angband is incredibly powerful. We've been working on trying to tone them down a little bit, and this is the product of a lot of those changes. The Sons of Feanor previously had a very, very difficult time winning any games against the forces of Angband, so it was nice to see this. Nice to see that the changes that we've been making have been taking effect. So let's take a look at what did the damage here for Secretariat. I think strangely enough, it's the infantry. Look at that, 364 kills on a unit of Defenders of Aglon. That is what you expect from the Noldor. Footmen of Amoras uniformly did extremely well. His cavalry weren't able to do a ton of damage, but they were used to kill some fairly high-profile targets. Keep him keep the Angband forces busy. Some of their monsters, like the Uruloki, were needed to hunt down the Mounted Company, I believe, Caligorm, and that was preventing them from being in the fight and supporting the Angband infantry against the Sons of Feanor. And as you saw, the Noldor are able to take those kinds of fights quite handily when the Orcs are unsupported. So yeah, really good game. Really good demonstration, I think, of a lot of the concepts that we're trying to move forward with Silmarillion Total War. We have less factions and they are smaller, but they are unique. Every unit should at least have its place and have an instance where it can be useful in a certain matchup where it is a good idea to bring them. And obviously the opposite holds true as well. There are certain matchups where some units may not be as useful. So for example, or aspects of them might not be as useful. So for example, the Thargelian Stalker's hand thrown projectile. It doesn't really do a lot to the forces of Angband. There are some light units they can really take a bite out of, but there are going to be other factions like Tolin Gauderhof, who are mainly medium and light infantry, where that unit will really shine. And then the AP won't be as useful because they won't have as much armor for that to make a difference. But against Angband, it is important. So I hope that kind of shows you what I'm hoping to achieve with Silmarillion Total War, and I hope it gets you excited. In any case, my name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. I'll see you guys next time. Take care, everybody.